And our final panelist for this session is Ms. Salden Sal, who is the co-founder of rZamba. She started her career in medicine, but soon changed her path and shifted to the social development sector. She's an American India Fellowship alumni and has worked with Cavalier Education Foundation prior to starting rZamba. With her belief in bridging the learning gaps in Kargil, she envisions every child as part of the education process.
Like Ladakh, struggling from being a state to union territory and to autonomy. So in these challenging circumstances, topography, tough winters, and a complete disconnect from the mainland for half a year, I would like my co-panelist Salden, who is from Ladakh, to share her experiences on the idea of how does the status of unreached affect children in Kargil. Over to you, Salden.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and hello, Vidyaji. Glad to share this platform today with both of you. rZamba means a bridge in Ladakhi, and Kargil, the reason behind Zamba's existence is one of the twin districts of Ladakh, Leh being the popular other. Our long freezing winters of almost 5 months caused blockade of the lone mountain pass connecting us to the rest of the country and world, and an airport which is literally 300 kilometers away from where I reside in Kargil. This forces most of the people here in a natural lockdown every year from December to April, ending or sometimes mid of May. During this time, schools have their long winter breaks, and this leaves the school active for hardly 5 to 6 months during the comparatively warmer months. And just for the information of the audiences today, more than 70% of the children in Kargil are enrolled across almost 557 government schools. So we began our journey of supporting school education in Kargil in the year 2015 with the School Health and Sanitation Initiative, where we also built a toilet for the girl students at one of the government schools at Dras. And it took us almost 5 months and double the amount we had in our hand to complete that program, that project. जो कि mainland India में maybe कहीं जगह सिर्फ मुश्किल से 1 लाख लगता, you know. And the reason क्या था कि a young boy who had picked arms was killed in Kashmir by the military. And which kind of pushed the whole valley under a curfew-like situation, blocking the lone road supplying us with the resources that we needed at that particular point of time. And this was a normal and predictable phenomena when we were a part of J&K, which kind of narrowed down our work time frame even more. We still persisted and put consistent efforts in developing a more robust whole school transformation program for government and community-run schools in Kargil, and decided to start a pilot in one of the schools in Silmo block in Kargil, starting from July 2019. Boom. August happened and Article 370 was abrogated, and Ladakh was given the status of a union territory, but under bracket, without legislation, which in no way made the unstable political and social dynamics better in any way in this part of the world. Majority of the Kargil was against this move by the center, and this kind of led to a curfew-like situation, closing the schools until October 2019. And for almost 5 months, Kargil didn't have any internet access at all. So can you imagine schools reopening again and exams are scheduled just a week or two away in November? What will the kids or teachers do, when they already have a narrow time frame in hand, which is now more constricted due to all the political and social inequilibrium? So many of the kids, they resort to cheating, and it leaves more than 50% of the higher secondary schools giving less than 50% pass results, or unme se bhi kuch schools giving 0 passing percentage. And also not to forget, to add on to all these challenges, the systemic loopholes seen elsewhere in the country, and also not having a proper teacher transfer policy. So everyone on the audience, I guess everyone knows Kargil after the famous Kargil War of 1999, and it was not the only war. There were 2 more in 1960s and 1 in 1970s. All 3 of them pushing Kargil decades back in the developmental pace, and the whole nation is reminded of Kargil every year when Kargil Vijay Divas is approaching, which is good, which is not bad at all. But wouldn't it be better if we, go beyond and understand the challenges of the people, through their narratives and through their lenses. For people living here, it has become normal, ये सारे conflicts, ये सारे political घिचपिच सबको आदत हो गई है, but it isn't normal and it shouldn't be. So Vidya ji, this is a burning question for a body like Zamba, and I'm sure for Samantha as well, that how do we share this broader narrative with the rest of the world? Then what could be the best ways to let the rest of the country understand our challenges and also know that we are trying to do something good over here, but we always struggle for support. Vidyaji, over to you.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Sorry. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here with the both of you today on this spectacular platform, and to hear from you, about the kind of challenges that you, Tanya, working at Shivalik Hills, and Saldan working, in Ladakh. I know about some of the challenges in the Leh district, but this was also very, very enlightening to hear. And, after hearing some of the work that, we've tried to do in very rural tribal parts of Maharashtra, it kind of pales in comparison. And so I'll just sort of describe, out of all the work we do in education, I'm focusing today on the more and more geographies, and the geographies that are really difficult to reach out to. And therefore, there are 4 districts in Maharashtra that I think in the midst of COVID, what has actually happened is, these geographies were actually taken aback because COVID didn't really reach them. But the impact of COVID was that schools were shut, despite the fact that the incidence of the disease was not as strongly felt as it was, say, in Mumbai or Pune or other cities in Maharashtra. And I think, again, the work that our NGOs on the ground really did was to engage the communities to find solutions for themselves. Both of you would have heard, in the midst of this, everybody said, let's get online, let's get, students to use smartphones. And the reality of it is that is really not possible in the geographies we work. And it's not just an internet issue or a phone issue. It's, these are all first generation learners whose parents cannot sit with them. They don't have a phone, among 2, 3, 4 children. They don't have that kind of, access. So we have to find newer ways of re-engaging. So the way NGOs, our partners, got doing it is actually first looked at it as a health issue and used that to re-engage with communities, to provide ration or to provide help, even though that was not their primary activity. And the second thing is to say, how do we get children in safe spaces to, and to get them to learn on their own, or with the help of teachers that we could re-engage. But a lot of that had to happen outside of the state system, because it so happened that in the midst of COVID, it was kind of very close to schools shut down in Maharashtra in the early part of April. So this was, sort of coincided with schools shutting down as well. But the role that communities and frontline workers from our NGOs, they have played, has actually gone quite uncelebrated in the last 4 or 5 months. And the role they played by using access to communities for rations and for health services and for midday meals replacements, I think that served as a good segue into finding the right solutions. The solutions aren't there still. They're still not there. We still don't know how things are going to evolve. But at least there is a move to realize that this is important. Schools will reopen in June in Maharashtra. But, what do we do? That thinking has really fast-forwarded. The use of libraries where possible as safe places has begun, but we're really far away from a solution. So I'd like to sort of use this point to turn back to you, Tanya, as well as Saldan, to really understand what's happened in your geographies in the midst of the crisis.
Yeah. Over to you, Saldan.
Thanks. So this COVID situation actually has, extended our already existing winter lockdown. And अभी December में school बंद हुए हैं, and it's now we have entered into August, and it's almost 8 months complete. The schools are still not open, and children are missing on the schooling. And to add to all these problems, the poor telecom connectivity to most part of rural Ladakh, like elsewhere in India. So surely, like, and जैसे विद्या जी अभी बोल रही थी, surely the online teaching thing, the TV, the radio thing is not working for most of the students out here. Um, and like every other year, you know, we had our plans for this year कि इस साल कुछ अच्छा करेंगे, कुछ ज़्यादा करेंगे, but then COVID happened. And then now it was the time for us to think through and see that what are the best possible ways in, you know, to support our community with the least possible resources on our hands. So we began by doing a donation drive for supporting the local administration and the hospitals in the initial phase of the COVID infection spread. जबकि सारे stocks खत्म हो रहे थे, market में भी, hospital में भी. So we provided PPE kits, sanitizers, sanitization devices to the hospitals, and even we collaborated with village youths to do kind of, you know, village sanitization drives wherever they were required. And just like Tanya, you said, there were various myths, you know, and fake news is spreading at that time like fire. So we took that opportunity to make awareness related videos in our local dialect to be shared with the general public. Apart from that, for us, storytelling was the easiest and the, you know, strongest tool for ensuring socio-emotional well-being of the children and adults alike. Hence, we tried reaching out to those who had some kind of internet access through collaborative storytelling initiative called Room Room Cell, wherein storytellers from not just India and Ladakh, but from all over the world are sharing their stories and folklores with the kids and people over here through our social media platforms. So we also realized this COVID situation as an opportunity to make the best of the time we have right now in our hands to involve the school heads and teachers in trainings and workshops and interactions. Therefore, we joined hands with the district education office in Kargil with a mission to engage them so that they would be prepared for dealing with bringing their schools on feet after the lockdown, and also in a way ensuring sustainability of what rZamba intends to do in the schools in Kargil. Ladakh has also witnessed a reverse migration of professionals and students working and studying elsewhere in the nation to their hometowns and their villages during this COVID crisis. And we thought that why not to leverage their time, skills, and passion, you know, to reach out to children on their doorsteps. Therefore, we have come up with an initiative called Kharsa Yontan, which actually, you know, translate into a door-to-door project-based learning initiative through volunteer facilitators. And as of now, about 50 volunteers have already registered with us, and from Leh and Kargil alike, and they are ensuring that learning continues to as many kids as possible. They are able to reach right now. ये सब बोल के भी लाइक ये सब तो ठीक है, हम कर रहे हैं जितना भी कर रहे हैं, बट वी नो दैट वी कैन डू मोर and we can impact more lives positively. But what actually stops organizations like us in these geographies and situations is the financial constraint. We need more money to be consistent, to sustain not just our initiatives but also our own personal passion and fire to give back to our communities. So Vidyaji, this makes me, and I'm sure Tanya here too, and to put out the bigger question out onto this platform today, that how to ensure financial support to organization like ours when most of the money in the ecosystem is directed either to urban locations or to more.
I'll quickly answer the fundraising question because I'm sure you want time for questions. I think one of the things we've tried to do at Edelgave is right from the beginning really focused on building the capacity, finding and identifying great small and medium-sized organizations. That's what really we've been focused on, because we really believe that these are the organizations that tend to be closest to the communities that they serve, and therefore are best placed to find the solution. Having said that, I think the issue of funding is just so universal today across the sector. There are issues like education, which get a lot more funding than other sectors. But like you've mentioned, that give is very, very skewed towards larger organizations, as well as towards more urban organizations. And I think the CSR mandate has possibly skewed that even more, partly because corporates have taken it upon themselves to really focus on the geographies in which their factories exist or their offices exist. So even though education gets a bulk of the overall funding, that funding is very, very skewed. And therefore, I find that, organizations like yours, and I know a few other organizations in Ladakh as well, Sardan, who really, really struggle. There is an issue of getting to funders. There is an issue of, pushing the cause. There is an issue of making the cause relevant to people who live far away and don't really experience the challenges that you do. So unfortunately, other than really finding platforms like these, as well as using, the convening power of a lot more strategic and a lot more forward looking funders to actually evangelize your cause, I really don't see any other way. I'm seeing, for example, we work in education, but we also work in gender justice. And the overall pie, out of the overall pie, 3% goes to gender justice issues. So there's a lot of inequality even in the way the funding gets transmitted. One of the things funders like us also do is find and help organizations like yours diversify your source of funding. So, for example, we have, as of last year, we had 71 grants that we made to 42 organizations. Out of those 70, we found co-funding for 50. So we fund, but we bring other people along as well. So that's one solution, is to find good core funders and then piggyback on their ability to get other funders also together. And the second thing is, how do you make the cause more, the cause is very real, it's very important, it's very urgent, but it's not, it doesn't get to people's heart. And unfortunately, bridging that emotional gap is also very important. And a lot of that happens through PR, through communication, through convenings, through using as many platforms as possible. So there's no real easy solution, but I think there are ways out there to connect with people and make the cause very, very real to them.
Yeah. So thank you for this wonderful and crisp answer to the very important question on the funds for the communities working in the unreached areas. So this a question is for Vidya. What are the key points you keep in mind when you decide to invest in a social organization?
Yeah, so we work in three areas. We work in education, we work in livelihoods, rural livelihoods, largely orientated towards water and agriculture. And the third is in gender justice, specifically in the empowerment of women and girls through a social and economic lens. So we have a sort of a grant cycle. We are a long-term funder. We tend to make grants of 2 to 3 years at the very least. And we are a long-term funder in large parts of our portfolio. We have organizations that we've engaged with for over 6 to 7, sometimes 8, 10 years as well. The way like I said, our focus is on small and medium-sized organizations where, budgets tend to be between, so it's not extreme it's not a very startup, but it's at probably, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So it's between, say, 500,000, so about a crore, a couple of crores right through to 8, 10 crores is our sweet spot in terms of the annual budget. And then, I think it's, for us, the most important thing is the leader and the team. and then the program and the thought around the theory of change, and also, what has been, the strength of the program. Because we also focus on capacity building, there are lots of things that we also fund that usually people don't fund. So we do fund beyond program costs. We do fund a lot of HR costs, team building costs, sometimes just building the costs of HR or administration or finance, and also help in developing systems and processes. So for us, the leader and the team, as well as the program and the strength of the program is really important.
Thank you. We can take another question, and so these remote geographies are under systemic constraints. In your experience, what does it take to build hope in these regions, even at a small scale? So Sheldon, either you and me both can go ahead with this. Share our experience.
मैं जवाब तो क्या, मतलब होप, these regions इतने challenges हैं यहाँ पे, और still people are surviving, and एक तरह से challenges के साथ लोग resilient भी बन जाते हैं, and उम्मीद पे ही तो दुनिया कायम है, तो लोग वहाँ पे उम्मीद पे ही कायम है basically. So even if someone is doing a small gesture also, it is like a very good thing for them. छोटा सा किसी को कुछ आप कोई वर्कशॉप ही छोटा सा करा लोगे, so it's a big thing for them कि हाँ कुछ हो रहा है, and especially when you engage with kids, अगर बच्चों को थोड़ा सा भी कुछ नया सीखने को मिलता है, they are so happy. So when I always share this particular example, जैसे कि मैंने अपने उसमें भी बोला था कि बच्चों के पास टाइम बहुत कम होता है, but still कि एग्जाम्स के लिए प्रिपेयर करने का ढंग से टाइम नहीं मिलता उनको, but they still come to give their exams, which gives which shows the hope that they have. They know that they might fail, they know that they might exams में वो पार नहीं कर पाएंगे, but still they come and give their papers, which is the biggest ray of hope. मुझे तो लगता है वो मुझे hope देते हैं, the kids, they give hope to us to नहीं, जब वो इतना लगे हुए हैं तो why shouldn't we, why shouldn't we keep on pushing for the cause and do something more for the kids over there. So I think hope is there. वहाँ पे हमें किसी को hope देने की जरूरत नहीं है, उनसे हमें hope खुद बहुत ज्यादा मिलता है, especially in a location like Kargil, जहाँ पे जंगे हो गई है, इतना सारा political और geographical इतने सारे challenges हैं, but still the people are resilient and they are hopeful for the better future, and everyone is striving for it. So we are just trying to contribute our bit into that. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, and for us, if I would take this forward, for us, I completely agree with what Sheldon shared, that hope is what we get from people, and then we get a lot of energy to work and share, be there. So commitment is one thing that we get, that okay, people are with us, we have to work. And also another hope example I would take, that valuing the indigenous knowledge. So if we go from a mindset that we are the ones ki hame hi sab pata hai, so that becomes a little challenging. So but when we value, okay, your knowledge is something very important, and we value the community leadership, so that builds a lot of hope. And and also children are such a good source of hope. Every time we go, so they don't greet us like namaste and all, वो हमारे ऊपर चढ़ जाते हैं, and then you feel that connect. What else do we want in life? Like every morning you see such bright faces, and some pretty girls like jo kabhi they were not even allowed to come to school. Like I remember a young girl, her name is Asma. So she was not allowed to come to school. वो सुबह भी अपने बहुत छोटी सी है, she was washing utensils, and then we had conversations with her parents that इसको भी भेजो, इसको भी पढ़ाएंगे, her brother is coming, they'll all come, मैं उनको pick करने आऊंगी, अंदर तक जाऊंगी. So they were like ठीक है. So I used to walk and bring her to the school, and now she is like flourishing. Like we always say कि तुम्हारा नाम आसमा है and you will touch the sky. So she is coming out with bright colors. So yeah, hope is everywhere, all around. So